I want to talk about the Tubali today. I love these images. They're beautiful variations of the Hausa architecture and tell such a rich history about the people. This is going to be part one of a 5-part series where we learn the history of how to build a Tubali in a step-by-step process. And today we're just starting with the history of the Tubali, just to try and understand that a little bit more. So if this is something that you're interested in, stay until the end of the video where I'll also be able to share resources with you in case you want to learn more. I remember in 1884, men sat in a room in Berlin and drew a line on a map. They called one side of the line Niger and then they called the other side Nigeria. But if you take this narrative and use it to start African indigenous architecture, you'll be completely lost. Because, for instance, in this situation, if you go to Maradi in Niger, if I'm saying that correctly, and then you walk to Katsina in Nigeria, the soil is the same, the rain is the same, and the Tubali as well is exactly built in the identical way. The Hausa people in Niger and those in Nigeria are just one people that are now divided by a line drawn by a foreigner who cared nothing about the people. These physical barriers tend to cause mental barriers in our head as well. And unless we start breaking them, we will never truly be free to experience how incredible and outstanding we are as a people. This is one of the blindfolds that keeps us from seeing the magic in ourselves. And I hope that as we learn more about indigenous architecture, even as I share more about the Tubali, we'll start to shift our mindset to want to study indigenous architecture from a holistic point of view and not looking at it as, oh, this is architecture of Niger, this is architecture of Nigeria, because I think that's a completely wrong way to do that. That is the approach I want to take even as we look into the Tubali and more videos that I'm going to be working on. For instance, if you look at the rich history of the Tubali, which is the Hausa architecture, it remains strong even today. And this rich history is found across this specific region which borders Niger and Nigeria at the same time. If you look at the Walls of Kano, which are famously known as Badala, Sarki Gijimasu in the year 1095, nearly thousands of years ago, started to build the Great Walls with the Tubali method. And then century after century, the Hausa people continued to do the same to provide security for the growing population. And then if you look at the walls of Zaure, these are also in Nigeria, built by Queen Amina, who ruled in the 15th and 16th centuries. She used the soil of Zaure, which is called Turunku, in the Tubali method to build a masterpiece of military engineering, standing tall against her invaders. If you look at the Gobirau Minaret in Katsina, the Gobirau has watched the sunrise for over 600 years. It stands as a witness that the indigenous spirit of the Hausa people and their rich knowledge of the soil and environment exists even today. To anyone who doubts if indigenous Africans were some of the greatest scientists and researchers who ever lived, here is your evidence. Their qualifications speak for themselves hundreds and thousands of years later. This is the type of knowledge that we need to get in order for us to understand ourselves. For those of us who like to travel and actually see real living historical evidences, I would say go travel and see the Gidan Rumfa, that is the Emir's palace in Kano, built in the 15th century. It is one of the oldest continuously lived structures in West Africa. It truly breathes history. And then there is the Gidan Makama in Nigeria, which is now a museum, and you'll see the durability of the Tubali design there as well. And then the Agades and the Yakub's Mosque in Niger, even their Hausa people where they meet the Tuareg, and the craftsmanship of the Tubali is still undeniable until today. So if you love to travel, I will highly encourage that you travel to some of these places, both in Nigeria and Niger, to be able to see the richness of history of the Tubali. One thing I want to say, even as we wrap up this video, is that a house is more than just a wall. For instance, the Gidan Hausa the architecture is a mirror of their soul. The architecture is built for Sutura, which is commonly referred to as privacy. The entrance of the hall, which is mainly the Zaure, protects the sanctity of the family inside, and then the overall design respects the dignity of the home, and it's built for Zumunci, which is community. One of the important things to take away is that the building of the indigenous home was never a lonely act. It was done with song, with prayer, with the whole village mixing mad. It connected people, the people of the land, and this is the type of mentality we need to have if we're truly going to build indigenously again. The connection between you, the community, the land, and the ancestors is a vital part of the building process. It's not just enough to say, I have money, I'm going to hire people, they're just going to build for me. No, you need to take a step back and you need to reevaluate. If you're going to build, how do you incorporate yourself, your ancestors, your community, the land? How do you do that in a more cultural and holistic way? So this is something so beautiful that I have learned about Tubali. If you know anything about the Tubali, I would love for you to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. In the next series, we're going to be looking at the step-by-step process of how you prepare the land and you choose the soil, how you ferment the soil, and what are some of the things that you need to take into account when now you're preparing to build a Tubali. So until next time, cheers.